The sea was calm that morning. The yachts swayed like slow animals, the water slapping softly against their white hulls. Dean Rourke lit a cigarette and watched the sky. It was always blue in Monaco, sharp and clear, except when it wasn't. He didn't like Monaco much. The air was too clean and the money too loud, but it was better than Paris, or Algiers. He'd been a cop once, then a soldier. Now he drank whiskey before noon and waited for cases that didn't come. The whores knew him. So did the old men who played cards in the Café de Paris. They called him Le Cowboy, and he didn't mind it. That morning, a woman came into his office. She wore white gloves and had eyes like polished stones. Her name was Lina Volkov. Russian, she said, though the name told him that already. She didn't sit. She stood near the desk and looked at the dust on the blinds. "I need someone who won't laugh," she said. "I don't laugh much," Rourke said. She showed him a photograph. Black and white, blurry, the mountains in the back, a thing in the sky, bright, wrong-shaped, like a child's drawing of a saucer. "My brother was in the Foreign Legion," she said. "Now he's gone. But he sent that before he disappeared. And pages, handwritten, not in Russian, not in any language." Rourke took a drink and looked at her. She didn't blink. "I want you to find out what happened." "You think it was little green men?" She didn't smile. "I think someone killed him to keep it quiet." Rourke didn't believe in aliens. He believed in bullets and weak men. He believed in lies. But the money was real, and he needed it. So he said yes. The papers led to a bar near the Italian border, a place where the whiskey was sour and the waiters hated questions. He found a man named Jacques Delpierre, a legionnaire, skin like tanned leather, tattoo on his neck of a scorpion. "I saw it," Jacques said, "over Jelfa, a thing with no wings, no tail, silent. It moved too fast." "You drinking when you saw it?" "We were all sober," Jacques said. 3 men went missing after that. Just vanished. Then command told us it was weather balloons. Said we were stressed. Gave us pills. "What kind of pills?" Jacques lit a cigarette. "The kind that make you forget things." Rourke went to Nice, found another name. Captain Hesse. Dead 2 years. Car accident, no witnesses. He looked at the crash photos. Too clean. No skid marks. Back in Monaco, someone broke into his flat. Took nothing. Left the photo on the kitchen table. Burned at the corners. A warning. He told Lina. She didn't flinch. She poured 2 whiskeys. "I think they want us to stop." "They always do," Rourke said. The sky changed after that. He watched it more. At night, it wasn't empty. He thought about Jelfa. He thought about deserts and men going missing. Thought about his own war. How silence always meant death. Then, one night, he saw it. Over the water. No sound. No blinking lights. Just a glow like a cigarette in the dark. It moved. Fast. Then gone. Just like that. The next day, Lina was gone. Her flat was clean. No clothes, no papers. The concierge didn't remember her. Said there'd never been a woman like that living there. But Rourke knew. He found her gloves on his desk. White, clean, he kept the photograph. He drank more. He waited. The sea stayed calm. The sky stayed blue, mostly. But at night, when the whiskey sat warm in his blood and the city had gone quiet, he looked up. He didn't laugh, not once, not anymore. He kept the lights low after that. They didn't help anyway. The city was bright enough, always glowing, neon and coin, but it felt darker in his flat now, empty. He looked for Lina, quietly. No one remembered her. Not at the cafe, not at the Hotel Hermitage where she said she sometimes took her tea. A woman in white gloves? No, monsieur, no one like that. He didn't push. You don't get answers by pushing in a place like Monaco. You get men in suits who start watching your windows. He stopped shaving. Didn't matter. The mirrors said the same thing either way. Weeks passed. The photo stayed on his desk, burned edges, sky wide and blank above the mountains. A piece of metal caught in the frame, something that shouldn't be flying. Not that shape, not that high. He looked at it often, and drank. There was a man named Wilcox. American. Tired eyes. Wore linen suits like he never left Havana. Rourke met him on the terrace of a casino, watching old men ruin their children's fortunes. "You knew Lena Volkov," Wilcox said. No preamble, no smile. "She hired me. She's gone now." Wilcox nodded like he already knew. "You don't want to keep chasing this." "That's so. Things in the sky, Mr. Rourke, they're not our business. Not yours. Not mine. I'm not in the business of letting people vanish. You are now." Wilcox got up, left a card on the table. No name, just a number. French, but not local. The kind of number that only rings once and only if you know what to say when someone answers. That night, Rourke went back to the marina. He drank whiskey from the bottle, sitting on a bench near the water. The boats rocked slow in the dark, and the moon made the water look metallic, cold, and fake. And then he saw it again. Same place, same shape, over the sea, bright and soundless. This time it stopped midair. Hovered like it was watching. Like it knew him. He didn't move, didn't blink. The light pulsed once, then it rose, fast, too fast, into the clouds. Gone again. Just like before. He didn't sleep. He sat with the bottle and waited for dawn. When it came, he picked up the phone and called the number Wilcox left. One ring. A voice answered, not Wilcox's. "Yes." "I want to know what happened to Lena Volkov," Rourke said. The voice was calm, cold, female. "She's no longer in Monaco." "Where is she?" A pause. "She's where she was always meant to be." Click. The next week a letter arrived. No stamp, no handwriting. Just a thin envelope slid under his door. Inside was another photo, this one clearer. Mountains again. And a craft, shaped like a disc but darker, smoother, like onyx under sunlight. There were markings on it. Not letters, symbols, familiar, almost, like something he'd seen as a child in a dream he forgot too soon. There was a note typed, "You asked, now stop asking." He put the photo in his desk drawer, poured a drink, watched the sky. At night he still saw things sometimes, lights moving too fast, shapes that didn't belong. He didn't talk about them, didn't take new cases either. The whores still smiled at him, but now they looked twice, like they knew something had changed in him. Maybe it had. Maybe a man only gets so many chances to ignore what the world tells him not to see. The whiskey stayed close. The blinds stayed drawn. He didn't laugh. Still didn't sleep much. But some nights, when the clouds cleared and the moon was thin and tired, he looked up again. And waited. Autumn came and the yachts emptied. The Americans left first. The Germans stayed longer, drunker. The Italians drifted in and out, smooth shoes and heavier voices. The sun still shone, but the city changed. Rourke noticed it. He noticed everything now. He'd stopped going to the cafe. The old men didn't ask why. He sat in his office most days with the radio off and the windows open. The sea air helped, but not much. The smell of salt only reminded him how far the desert was. How far Jelfa was. How far Lena had gone. She came back in dreams, always in the white gloves. Sometimes she spoke, sometimes she didn't. But she always looked up, like something behind him was there, just out of view. One night she said, "They're watching you too, Dean." A week later, a man followed him. Young, clean, northern clothes. He stood near the tobacco stand and didn't buy anything. Then the next day, outside the harbor, same man, pretending to tie his shoe. Third day, Rourke walked straight up to him. "You working for Wilcox?" The man said nothing, eyes too still. He smelled like nothing. That was the strange part. No sweat, no cologne, just blank. Rourke grabbed him by the coat. The man didn't flinch, didn't blink. "Tell Wilcox I'm done." Still nothing. Rourke let go and walked away. Didn't look back. He didn't need to. The man would be gone. They always were when you turned around. That night, he burned the second photo, sat on the terrace and let the wind take the ashes. The sea was loud beneath. He drank the rest of the bottle and didn't start a new one. The sky was clean. Too clean. He thought about the war, Algeria, the heat, the way men vanish when enough money is on the table. He remembered the way the helicopters never circled when they should have, how the orders changed overnight, how maps disappeared from briefings, and how one time, in 1959, near a dry canyon south of El Galea, a man in his unit looked up, went pale, and whispered something Rourke never forgot. "That's not French. That's not anyone." He woke up to knocking, not the door, the window. It was Lena. Alive, real. He didn't open it right away, just stared. Her hair was shorter, her eyes the same. The gloves were gone. He opened the window. She stepped through like it was something she'd done before. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "I had to come back." "Why?" "They're leaving." Rourke poured a whiskey. Didn't offer her one. She didn't sit. Just stood there like she wasn't really touching the floor. "Who are they, Lena?" Her voice was soft, like the sea below them. Not gods, not angels, not the things we hoped for, but older. Watching, waiting, studying. "Us?" "All of it." He drank. It didn't burn. "Why you?" "I had the blood they wanted." "And your brother?" "They kept him." She left before dawn. Didn't say goodbye. Just walked out. No sound. He didn't follow. He knew he wouldn't find her. The next day, the sky cracked. A soundless white line opened above the coast. No thunder, no lights, just a tear in the blue that hung there, still and wrong. People pointed. Some screamed. Some prayed. Then it vanished. No one talked about it after. The papers wrote about yachts. The casinos reopened for winter money. But the people knew. You could see it in their faces. Monaco had changed. Even the pigeons flew lower. Rourke stayed. He bought a new bottle. He watched the sea, and sometimes when the night was long and the wind came off the water in a certain way, he'd look up again, and he would wait. Just in case she ever came back. Or just in case they did. The pigeons stopped coming after that. He noticed it one morning over coffee. There used to be hundreds along the terraces, feeding on crumbs and cigarette ash. Gone now. Just gulls. He didn't ask anyone about it. The shopkeepers didn't look up anymore. They kept their heads down, cleaned their windows more often. The men who used to argue politics near the statue of Rainier now whispered, not about communists or the markets, but about lights in the hills, about radios picking up signals in the wrong language, about pets going silent, about watches that stopped and never ticked again. Wilcox was gone. The number on the card rang out into silence. No operator, no tone, just open air. Rourke started writing things down. Not for a book, not for anyone, just to remember. He filled 3 notebooks with what he saw, what he heard, the shape of the light, the things Lena had said, what Jacques told him in the bar. He wrote about Jelfa, about the men who went missing, about how the air went cold around the photo before it burned. He didn't try to make sense of it, just wrote it down, flat and true, the way things happened. He kept the notebooks in the safe. He didn't trust banks anymore. One night he woke to find one of them moved, not stolen, not burned, just placed open, on the desk, a single sentence underlined in red pencil. They never left. He went up into the hills after that, north of Beausoleil, where the view stretched all the way to Italy. He brought binoculars, a flask, and a .38 that hadn't been fired since Algiers. The air was cleaner up there and quieter, too quiet. He waited 2 nights. On the third it came, low, silent, a triangle this time, smooth and black like glass in water. It hovered above the ridge, long enough for him to see the patterns under it, symbols again, circles inside lines, angles that bent the wrong way. It didn't glow, it pulsed, He raised the .38 and didn't fire. What would be the point? The thing rose without wind, just lifted, not fast, not slow, like it was watching him one last time. Then it vanished behind a veil of clouds that hadn't been there before. He went back to Monaco at sunrise, bought coffee from a man who didn't look him in the eye. The headlines were about a stolen emerald, a prince in trouble. Nothing new, no mention of the sky. There never was. By December, the lights came every week. Always silent, always different. Sometimes alone, sometimes in pairs. Over the harbor, over the sea. Once, directly above the palace. No one said a word. The city changed shape. Tourists left early. Locals stayed inside more. The priests started locking the cathedral before nightfall. And Rourke? He watched, he drank, he waited, he began to understand. They weren't hiding. They were acclimating. One night a girl came to his door, 14, maybe 15, short black hair, wide eyes, looked like Lina, only younger. "I think you knew my aunt," she said. Rourke didn't answer. The girl held out a cassette tape. Unlabeled. "She left this for you." He took it. The girl didn't wait. She disappeared down the street without another word, vanishing into the folds of the old city. The tape was strange, not music, not quite words, tones, pulses, something that sounded like breathing through a tunnel. Then Lina's voice faint and slowed. "Dean, they're not coming, they're already here, they always were. You saw them before you knew what they were. Jelfa wasn't your beginning, it was your return." Then silence, then the sound of waves. After that the dreams changed. He stopped dreaming of Lina. He dreamed of the inside. A space with no walls, no sound. Only light. And weightlessness. He dreamed of the hum. Of something watching him, not with eyes, but with thought. He never woke afraid. Only tired, always tired. And so the months passed, and the world stayed quiet. The papers stayed full of lies. But the sky over Monaco stayed alive, and Dean Rourke, with his whiskey and his notebooks, stayed watching it. Waiting, not for answers. He knew better now. He waited because that's what you do when the sky starts talking and won't stop. You don't run. You don't hide. You pour another drink and you listen. In January, the sea turned black. Not in color, in feeling. It was the same water it always was, blue in daylight, silver at night. But something in it had gone quiet. The boat stopped making ripples. The waves still came, but softer, as if the tide was uncertain. Fishermen said their compasses spun for hours. They drank more, cursed more, didn't go out past the point anymore. The locals started calling it La Mer Morte, the Dead Sea. Rourke knew it wasn't dead. It was listening. The notebook pages turned by themselves now. He left them on the desk, and each morning a new page would be exposed. Sometimes it was blank, sometimes it wasn't. Words he didn't remember writing, whole paragraphs. Once, a sentence that didn't sound like him. "The structure of presence is not a rival." He read it 10 times and poured whiskey after. It didn't help. Another day, the words, "What you name as sky is only a lid." That time he laughed. A dry sound low in the chest, not real humor. More like a bark, more like surrender. That spring they came down, not from the air, from under. He saw it from the cliffs, north of Capdale, above a cove he used to visit when he wanted quiet. There was a cave there one the fishermen said was cursed. Said no fish swam near it. Said the tides pulled differently there. That night something rose from it, not quickly, not with light or sound. Just a shift, a presence. A long, thin shape like a blade of black metal, coated in sea foam. No windows, no engines. It hovered 10 feet above the waves, dripping. Then it turned, not with motion, but with intention. It didn't move, but it changed direction. Rourke stood above, watching, the wind dead around him. It stayed there for 23 minutes. Then it slid sideways, impossibly smooth, and disappeared into the water again without a splash. The next morning, someone left him a package, wrapped in butcher paper, no name, Inside, a photograph. It showed the cave, taken from sea level, and inside, barely visible in the shadows, a figure. Humanoid, too tall, too thin, skin like chrome. It was looking out. Rourke stopped drinking for 3 days, then started again. He didn't like the world sober. Not this one. April brought fog, not the kind that drifts, not the kind that lifts. It came in from the sea and sat, heavy, yellow at the edges, electric somehow. Radios died in it. Dogs barked until they passed out. The prince issued a curfew. No one listened. The fog stayed. Rourke didn't sleep much that month. When he did, he dreamed of glass rooms with no doors, of voices that spoke in angles, of Lina walking backwards into the sky, smiling, her feet never touching ground. He was older now, felt it in his knees, in the way the stairs groaned when he went up too fast. The whiskey did less than it used to. Or maybe he just needed more. The city had changed, not in buildings, in atmosphere. Monaco still looked the same, still had money and women and roulette, still had yachts and silk and men who pretended the world was simple, but there were fewer birds, fewer laughs, fewer lies being told out loud. Now the lies lived in the quiet, in the pause between sentences. One night someone knocked. Not the window, the door this time. He opened it. It was the girl again. Lina's niece. Same eyes, same quiet. She handed him another envelope, this one thicker. He opened it after she left. Inside, a map. Hand-drawn, circles and lines, markers in the sea, symbols. Most he didn't know. But one word was in English, event, beneath it a date. June 17th, 6 days away. He circled the date on the wall calendar with a pen. Didn't know why. Habit, maybe. Pretending time still worked the way it used to. He looked up at the sky. It looked back. He didn't pack a bag, just brought the notebook. The flask. The revolver. Not to use. Just to carry. Weight helped. He took the train east, got off before the border, walked down toward the sea along a path that wasn't on any map. At the end of it, stone steps, worn and wet. Salt in the air, stronger than ever. The cave was open, the sea was still. He waited. And when the sky changed, when the stars went out one by one and the tide began to glow from underneath, he didn't run. He stepped forward, and the sea opened for him. The sea opened, not like a wound, not like something torn, but like something allowing. Rourke stood there on the stone steps with the salt stinging his face and the waves holding still as glass. The glow below was deep and steady, not light, not reflection, a kind of pulse, a kind of breathing. He'd known this would happen, even if he'd never said it. The map, the photo, the girl, Lina, the dreams, they had all pointed here, just not with a finger, with gravity, and now the water pulled him. He stepped down, one foot into the sea, then the next. It was warm, not wet, not cold, just there, like walking into memory. The surface didn't ripple as he passed through. It held still. The sky behind him, the air above, gone in seconds. The cave mouth opened wide before him, wider than before, much deeper. He kept walking. The pressure didn't build. The air didn't leave his lungs. He should have drowned, but drowning would have been simple. This was not that. This was something designed. He passed beneath the surface and entered silence. Not quiet. Total silence. No heartbeat. No breath. No sound at all. Then a tone, low, long, familiar, though he had never heard it before. A tone that spoke of waiting, watching, choosing. Light bloomed ahead, not white, not gold. Something closer to colorless. Something that burned in the brain, but left no shadow. And in the center of it, Lina. She did not look older, not younger either. She looked the same as she had the first time she stepped into his office. Gloves gone, eyes still fixed and clear. "Dean," she said. Her voice didn't carry, it arrived. "You came." I always was, he said. I just didn't know it. She nodded, slowly, as if it was not a truth, but a recognition. They've been waiting. For you. Why me? Because you remember. He looked past her. Figures moved there, tall, bent, thin as the space between stars, shapes that shimmered, eyes that were not eyes. They were never hiding, Lena said. They were waiting for someone who wouldn't look away. I don't understand, he said. You don't need to. She reached out her hand. He took it. Her skin was warm, solid, real. And then, the chamber opened around them. Circular. Vast. Like being inside an idea. Walls like water held in place by thought. Symbols carved in light. Geometry that moved. Sound returned, but not as sound. More like memory being played in reverse. Lena walked with him. They passed others, not men, not women, not even shapes he could hold in his head. Just presence. Some looked at him. Some did not. All knew him. He felt it. Like a weight he had always carried, now named. They came to a room. Inside a chair, simple, metal, old. Like something from an operating theater or a soldier's train. This is the part you have to choose, Lena said. What happens if I sit? You stop waiting, and if I don't? You go back. You drink, you stare at the sky until one day the waiting ends anyway. But not like this. Not with meaning. He looked at the chair, thought of the whiskey bottle on the desk, the pigeons that never came back, the girl with Lena's eyes, the lights over the sea, the notebooks that turned their own pages. He sat. What followed was not pain, not light, not death. It was removal. Of time, of name, of gravity, of loneliness. It all peeled away like old wallpaper under steam. And in its place, a memory not his. The stars before they cooled. The sea before it knew salt. The first eye that opened and saw not prey, not friend, but possibility. They gave him something. Not words, not orders, just knowing. And then he woke, back on the cliffs, dry, no blood, no bruises, just the salt on his lips and a notebook in his lap, one he hadn't brought. Inside, no handwriting, just symbols, row after row, carefully etched, familiar now. He turned the last page, one line, typed, "You are no longer waiting." He stood. The sky above Monaco was empty again. Still. Wide. He lit a cigarette and watched the sea, then turned, walked down the path toward the city. Not fast, not slow, just steady. The way a man walks when he knows things no one else believes. He was no longer a private investigator. He was a witness. And the sky. The sky would not be empty for long. He walked back into Monaco as the sun broke the edge of the sea. The city didn't notice him. It never had. The streets smelled of pastries and exhaust. Shopkeepers pulled in awnings. The first gamblers of the morning drifted toward the casino, hollow-eyed, looking to fill something. Rourke lit another cigarette. He had smoked all the ones he had before. Now he was buying again. A man with a purpose still needed something in his hand. He went home. Same apartment. Same dusty blinds. The air was stale. But it was his. For now. He poured a whiskey and didn't drink it. Just watched the light hit the glass and bend. He set the notebook down on the table. The new one. The one with the symbols. He flipped it open again. Page after page of the same shapes. He didn't know what they said. But he didn't have to. Not yet. He would. It was already in him. That week, 3 men came to see him. Suits, clean nails. Government maybe, maybe not. They didn't say who they worked for. Didn't need to. "We heard you've seen things," one said. "I hear things too," Rourke said. "Doesn't mean I write them down." They asked about Lena, about the girl, about the notebook. He said nothing. The oldest of them leaned forward. "You're not safe, Mr. Rourke." He smiled at that, a small, real smile. "I never was." They didn't like that. They left him a card. He didn't call. Days blurred, but not like before. This was different. He didn't drink to forget now. He drank to keep still, to stop from speeding up. The symbols in the notebook started making sense. Not as language, as rhythm, as movement, patterns. They were maps, not of places, of events. Each page a different shape and time. He could feel it in his chest sometimes, like music you can't hear but know is playing. He circled the next one, August 3rd, 3 weeks away. That night the fog returned. Thicker, it rolled through the alleys like a living thing. People stayed inside. Lights flickered. The cathedral bell rang once, though no one pulled the rope. Rourke walked through it, down to the port. He stood at the edge, looking at the water. And there it was again, rising from the deep, same shape, same silence, the black blade. But it wasn't alone this time. Behind it something vast, not ship, not craft. Something like a wound in the sea itself, rising open and wrong. He couldn't see its end. It wasn't a vehicle. It was an invitation. He didn't move and didn't blink. Just stood there, smoke curling from his cigarette, the fog hugging his ankles, the night holding its breath. And the thing looked at him, not with eyes, not even with intention, with recognition. He went home before sunrise, didn't sleep, didn't write. Just sat in the chair by the window with the notebook in his lap, and whispered one word to the empty room, soon. August 3rd came, and with it the event, not an explosion, not a crash, and no sound, just stillness. Every radio in the Principality died at once. Every clock paused for 8 minutes. The lights in the casino turned violet, and for 1 full hour no one remembered what they were doing. Then, time resumed, like nothing had happened. Only Rourke remembered, and the girl. She came again that night, older this time, or maybe more. She sat across from him, looked at the whiskey, didn't drink. "They're not visiting anymore," she said. "No," Rourke said, "they're home." "And you?" He looked out the window. The sky was quiet, but not empty. Never empty. "I'm just the man who stayed awake," he said. She nodded, left without another word. He finished the last page of the notebook. The symbols ended in a spiral. He understood that now, too. A return, not a story, a cycle. And when the next date came, when the page turned again and the stars rearranged themselves overhead, he stood once more on the cliffs above Capdale. The cave waited, the sea waited, so did they. And this time, he did not hesitate. He went in, and the sea did not close, because it no longer had to. He didn't bring the flask this time. No revolver, no binoculars, no coat. Just the notebook, closed now. The spiral on its last page burned into the leather cover like a brand. He held it under one arm as he walked down the cliffs, the sun falling behind the hills, the wind gone still, as though the world was waiting again. But this time it wasn't the sea that was opening. It was him. The cave mouth was wider than before. Taller, too, as if it had been growing between visits. The stone was darker, wet with something that wasn't water. The tide did not come in. The tide did not move. He stepped inside. Everything was as it had been, lightless, soundless, but he was not afraid. Not anymore. He walked deeper. The ground sloped down, slime-covered stone underfoot. It should have smelled like death. It didn't. It smelled like metal, and ozone, and memory. And then, there it was again, the presence, not the ship, not the figures, something behind it all. Lina had called it they, but now he understood it was not plural. It was one, a whole that used many shapes, many shadows. It spoke, not aloud, not in his ears, but through the weight in his bones, through the notebook in his hand, through the back of his eyes. A voice without tone. "You are ready." He stepped forward. The walls of the chamber unfolded like petals, black metal and impossible angles. The air shimmered, alive and thick with static. In the center of it, a dais, floating, spinning slowly. The notebook lifted from his hand without force, rose into the air, opened itself, the spiral turned, and then he saw it, his own life laid out in flickers of light. Paris, Algiers, the girl, Lina, the cave, the lights, the fog, the pistol he never fired, the whiskey, the dreams, all of it, spinning around him like constellations that had always been there, waiting for someone to look up. He didn't move. He understood. This wasn't about discovery or proof or contact. It was about recognition. He had been recognized. Another spiral formed, larger, in the air, over the dais. Inside it, the shape of the earth, then the city, then the sea, then him. He reached out. His hand passed through the light and into warmth, and when he pulled it back, it was not a hand anymore. It was still his, but not only his. The cave opened again, the sea split gently, and the air shimmered across the coast of Monaco. Lights in the sky, no movement, no sound, just watching. Rourke walked back into the city at dawn. Not as a man, not quite. The people on the street didn't see him. The women at the cafe looked through him. Even the pigeons returned, and flew in slow, perfect circles overhead. He sat on a bench overlooking the harbor, lit a cigarette, watched the sun rise. He looked at the notebook, now blank again. He didn't need to write anything, not anymore. Everything had been passed on. The waiting was over, but not the watching. The sky would never be the same, and neither would he. He had become the witness, and he had become the spiral. He had become the opening. The days passed. The city moved around him. Men still shouted at roulette wheels. Women still wore diamonds too early in the day. Motorcars still whispered through narrow streets, chasing nothing. But something had shifted. They didn't feel it, but he did. It was in the air, in the cracks of the pavement, in the way birds flew tighter now, in the way lights sometimes blinked twice without cause, in the hush between boat horns, in the stillness behind motion. He stopped going to the cafes. He stopped answering his door. The men in suits didn't come back. Not since the fog. Not since August 3rd. He wasn't hiding. He had just seen too much of the real shape of things. The kind of shape a man can't explain without being called mad. Or worse, believed. At night he sat on the balcony and looked at the sky, not with wonder, not with fear, with recognition. The stars weren't stars, not all of them. Some moved, some didn't, some blinked back. One night the girl came again. Not walking this time. Standing already at the rail when he turned. She wasn't older, she was wider. Not in body, in presence. There was more of her now, as if what had been skin and shape before had become something that stretched through air and thought. She smiled, but it wasn't a girl's smile anymore. "You've passed the last gate," she said. "Didn't know there was one? There's always one more." He poured 2 whiskeys she didn't drink. "You'll be leaving soon," she said. He didn't answer. She stepped close, touched the notebook. It didn't open. It breathed. Then she looked up. So did he, and the sky blinked again. That night he didn't dream. He remembered a shape, the first spiral, the one before time, before language, before matter understood it had weight. He saw it, not as an idea, as origin. He woke with salt in his mouth and a line of blood running from his left nostril. He wiped it with the back of his hand, lit a cigarette, and exhaled the smoke toward the stars. The next day the news ran a small headline on the back of the Nice Matin. "Fishermen report silence beneath the bay. No echoes, no life." They closed the port for a day, claimed sonar trouble. Rourke read the article. He smiled. It had begun. There were 3 final entries in the notebook. They appeared one morning, though he hadn't written them. Not in ink, in light. The letters shimmered, burned briefly, then faded. He didn't copy them, didn't need to. They said, "The veil is not a wall. The silence is not absence. The spiral is not a path. It is the door." He went down to the water at midnight. The boats rocked gently, but made no sound. No wind, no fog, just the open sea, silver with moonlight. The girl was waiting again. So was something else, not a ship, not a thing. An openness, A corridor of stars made C-shape, rising off the surface like a bridge without end. She looked at him. "You're not returning," she said. "No," Rourke answered. "I've done all the returning I ever needed." She didn't cry. She wasn't built for that anymore. Neither was he. He walked into the sea. The water did not resist. The notebook dissolved in his hands. The world behind him held its breath. And then, the light opened one last time. A spiral, a door, a crossing. They say the man in the flat above the harbor disappeared. Some say he drowned. Some say he moved to Tangier or died in Algiers years ago and no one ever noticed. A few remember the pigeons never came back. And sometimes, on cloudless nights, tourists swear they see a thin light curl out from the sea like a smoke ring, rising, pulsing, then fading to nothing. The locals don't talk about it, but the sea knows, and the sky remembers. And somewhere, just beyond time, Dean Rourke sits beneath a sky that has no end, watching a world that is finally ready to wake, and waiting for nothing, because the waiting is over.